Rikuro Hizutome spends most of his time playing low-quality video games, which is kind of strange. He's not into the popular ones. He prefers the ones that aren't so great. After finishing one of these games, he's on the lookout for another when he's told about a fantastic game called Shangri Frontier. Surprisingly, his skills from playing all those trash games come in handy when he starts playing this new one. The story starts with a character named Faria thanking a masked man for defeating the Dark Lord. But this masked man, Sunraku, doesn't seem too happy about it. He even kicks Faria, claiming she's the real villain. Then, suddenly, it's game over. Rikuro, our main character, celebrates finally beating Faria Chronicles, seeking revenge on Faria herself. It's clear he's really into this game. Rikuro lives in a world where virtual reality gaming is huge, but he's not interested in the popular games. He's what you might call a freak for preferring the flawed ones. As he heads to school on the last day before summer break, he seems tired from gaming. And there's a girl at school who seems to be planning how to talk to him. Just as this girl, Rei Saga, is about to make her move on him, one of Rikuro's gamer buddies swoops in and whisks him away. Later, Rei heads to a game store called Rock Roll. She meets Mana, the owner, who quickly figures out she's looking for Rikuro. But Rei denies it, pretending she's just browsing. Yeah, right. Turns out Rei's a gamer too, so it's not strange to find her here. Mana tells Rei that Rikuro might not show up soon because he's trying to crack some trashy game. They chat about how awful the game is when Rikuro suddenly walks in, asking Mana for more garbage games. Before Mana can respond, Rei disappears, hiding behind a shelf. Rikuro tells Mana how terrible the game was, blaming everything on a character named Faria. He even talks about a special 3-minute moment after beating the final boss, which he used to beat up Faria. I've never seen someone so passionate about a game. Then he sadly admits he doesn't know what to play next. Mana suggests he try a non-trashy game for once and introduces him to Shangri-La Frontier. Strangely, he agrees. Meanwhile, Rei overhears everything from her hiding spot and knows what game Rikuro will play next. Rikuro rushes home with the game in hand, eager to dive into Shangri-La Frontier. He spends some time customizing his in-game character, which seems normal until he decides to sell off all his gaming gear just to get more in-game currency. Now he's left with nothing but shorts, so he puts on a mask to cover up his embarrassment. Once he's all set up with his avatar and skills, he enters the game and is blown away by how amazing it looks compared to the trash games he's used to. He always goes by the name Sunraku in games, and this one is no different. Choosing to start as a wanderer, he skips the tutorial and finds himself in a forest near a town called Furstia. As he explores, he checks his stats and realizes he's low on vitality but has high luck. Suddenly, a goblin attacks him, but Rikuro swiftly defeats it and levels up to 2. His victory is short-lived as he's then attacked by a Vorpal bunny, armed with knives. Despite the danger, Rikuro manages to block and land a critical hit on the nimble creature. The Vorpal bunny doesn't give up easily, but Sunraku manages to defeat it once more, earning himself 2 more experience points and reaching level 4. Despite the victory, the bunny doesn't drop its weapon, much to Sunraku's disappointment. However, he finds himself enjoying the game even more as he realizes there are no bugs to be found. Instead of heading straight to the town of Furstia as planned, Sunraku gets sidetracked hunting more monsters and Vorpal bunnies. After defeating around 50 of them, he finally obtains the coveted Vorpal chopper, now at level 12. He then distributes his stat points, allocating only 5 to stamina and a whopping 20 to luck. Typical Sunraku. Realizing he's strayed far from Furstia and closer to Secondale, he decides to head there instead. Along the way, he encounters a giant python guarding a bridge, knowing he must defeat it to progress. Meanwhile, Rei, also a character in the game, searches for Sunraku in Furstia but can't find him, assuming he's moved on to Secondale. Back to the battle with the python boss, Sunraku carefully observes its attack patterns, using his skill tap step to dodge its strikes. Eventually, he decides to attack but breaks his sword in the process. With no other choice, he wields the Vorpal chopper, planning a deadly strike. However, the python surprises him by spraying a purple gas, which turns out to be poisonous. Now, Sunraku is in a race against time as he battles the python while dealing with the poison's effects. Despite his best efforts, Sunraku's attacks only chip away at the python's health. In a desperate move, he grabs hold of the python's hair and strikes its eyes, finally defeating the creature. He triumphantly collects the drops before realizing his health is dangerously low, sitting at a mere 9. Quickly, He allocates all his points into stamina and agility, sprinting towards the town to find an inn where he can respawn if he dies. Running with all his might, he finally reaches the town, where another player guides him to the inn, emphasizing that he needs to get into bed for it to register. Sunraku thanks the player without stopping, his health dwindling rapidly. Finally reaching the inn, he faces delays from an NPC, but eventually manages to dive onto the bed, registering it as his respawn point just before he succumbs to death. After respawning, Rikuro takes a break from Shangri-La Frontier, impressed by its intensity and excitement. He plans to thank the players who helped him later. Returning to the game, he explores the town of Secondale, eager to make the most of his first experience. However, other players are unsettled by his avatar's lack of clothing, prompting him to buy some clothes. Sunraku, ever the frugal one, opts for the cheapest cloth available in the shop, though it turns out to be surprisingly stylish. Next, he seeks a new weapon but finds none better than his trusty Vorpal choppers. The weapon seller informs him that to get something superior, he'll need to bring materials for crafting. Determined, Sunraku heads to Diremarsh Waste to mine for ores. Frustration sets in as he only finds rock pieces, but his mood worsens when a pesky frog interrupts him. In a fit of anger, he dispatches the frog and continues mining until he collects enough ores. Returning to the weapon master, Sunraku shocks the seller with a unique green ore. Excitedly, the seller showcases a weapon crafted from it, which Sunraku gladly accepts, impressed by its efficiency. He marvels at the AI's advanced communication skills during the transaction. Later that night, Sunraku ventures out of town, warned of lurking monsters. Meanwhile, Rei easily defeats the python on her way to Secondale, still searching for Sunraku. Meanwhile, Sunraku faces a tougher opponent, a red-cap goblin with aggressive moves. Despite the challenge, he relishes the battle's intensity. Things escalate when the goblin calls for reinforcements, but Sunraku remains undeterred. Suddenly, all the goblins vanish, revealing a massive wolf-like monster named Lycagon the Nightslayer. Rei encounters the players who directed Sunraku to the inn and learns of his whereabouts, rushing off to find him. The player reveals to Rei that her cape emblem signifies her membership in a clan focused on the unique monster, Lycagon the Nightslayer. Rumors suggest there are 7 such monsters, incredibly powerful and unbeatable. Despite Shangri-La Frontier's year-long run and 30 million players, none have managed to defeat any of these unique beasts. Meanwhile, Sunraku faces off against Lycagon. The monster attacks, sending Sunraku flying backward. Realizing he needs to get serious, Sunraku switches to his Vorpal choppers and lands strikes, though they hardly affect the beast. Focusing on the legs, he scores some critical hits, but Lycagon vanishes and reappears, launching another attack. This pattern continues until Sunraku tries aiming for the eyes, to no avail. Suddenly, he finds himself floating and helpless as Lycagon howls, freezing him in place. The next moment, Sunraku's legs vanish, and Lycagon kills him, cursing him in the process. Respawned at the inn, Sunraku discovers his body marked and his equipment missing. Reading about the curse, he grows angry at his predicament. Determined to seek revenge, he heads into town, now even more hideous due to the curse. In an alley, he encounters a Vorpal bunny of a different caliber, who leads him to a secret door. Following the bunny inside, Sunraku steps into the unknown. Rikuro explains that he's encountered something like this before in the game guide, known as unique scenarios. These scenarios are shrouded in mystery, with unknown locations, unlocked times, and contents, making the skills gained from them highly prized. Sunraku suspects his luck stat is responsible for his current situation and resolves to make the most of it. Stepping through the door, he enters a realm called Rabatuza, filled with nothing but bunnies. The same bunny who led him here appears again, chattering endlessly before taking Sunraku to meet his boss. Sunraku is immediately intimidated by the boss, who resembles a Japanese drug lord with a cigarette in his mouth. Introducing himself as Visash, the boss leaves Sunraku feeling petrified. Meanwhile, Rei searches for Hizutome at the game shop, explaining her quest to Mana. Embarrassed, Rei blushes at the suggestion to express her feelings. Hizutome reads reviews of beginners' unique scenarios, but his experience differs greatly from what he expected. Flashing back to his encounter with the intimidating boss, Hizutome recalls being shaken to the core by the gangster-like figure who praises his fight with Lycagon. Faced with a training quest, Hizutome accepts, reverently referring to the boss as Aniki. The Yakuza boss's demeanor shifts dramatically, his eyes blazing like miniature Sharingan. Sunraku feels a chill down his spine, fearing for his life as he realizes his mistake in addressing him as Aniki. The boss approaches him, and the tension in the air is palpable. Suddenly, the boss grabs Sunraku, but instead of violence, he laughs, expressing his liking for him and instructing him to call him Vosh, though acknowledging Sunraku as his underling. As Vosh departs, he assigns Amul, the talkative bunny, to look after Sunraku and places a collar called Vorpal Soul Collar on him, limiting his power. Meanwhile, Hizutone tries his hand at a new game but faces defeat. He shares his experiences with his challenger, discussing the challenges of the game, particularly his encounter with Lycagon. Determined to defeat the unbeaten monster, Hizutone refuses to give up. Elsewhere, a seductive player is invited to play SLF as Hizutone returns to Secondale. Sunraku utilizes a portal opened by Amul, who reveals its ability to open portals anywhere. As they form an alliance, two female players spot Amul and, drawn to its cuteness, bombard it with questions about joining their party. Sunraku intervenes, silencing Amul before they flee. However, one of the players manages to take a screenshot before they escape to the outskirts of town. Just as Sunraku is about to inquire about a line in the curse, they hear a screech, signaling impending danger. As the ram charges towards Sunraku, it catches sight of the curse marks on him and tries to flee, but Sunraku refuses to let it escape unfinished. He gives chase and ultimately defeats it, impressing Amul with his skills. Eager for more action, Sunraku and Amul sprint off to face more monsters, leading them to a territory inhabited by a creature known as the Mud Digger. This monster resembles something out of a Brazilian horror movie, with the appearance of a great white shark but with 4 legs. Sunraku learns of a peculiar rule in the mud: one foot must be fully immersed before the second can move, rendering movement difficult. Despite the odd setup, Sunraku faces off against the Mud Digger, evading its attacks with a skill called Slide Move. However, his counterattack only inflicts minimal damage, leaving him vulnerable as he waits for his skills to recharge. Just in time, Amul casts a spell, sending the Mud Digger flying momentarily. Sunraku rushes to capitalize on the opportunity, but the monster recovers quickly. With Amul's assistance, Sunraku manages to incapacitate the Mud Digger temporarily. However, their victory is short-lived as the creature disappears into the mud dunes. Sensing danger, Sunraku realizes the Mud Digger's approach from below, swiftly pushing Amul to safety before being launched into the air by the monster's sudden emergence. As he plummets towards the ground, Amul once again proves invaluable. As Sunraku plummets towards the ground, Amul rushes to his aid, unfurling a scroll and casting a spell that teleports them just above the Mud Digger. Utilizing the free fall velocity, Sunraku executes a devastating headbutt skill called Meteor Fall, dealing a powerful blow that sends the Mud Digger reeling. Sunraku levels up immediately following the victory. Returning to the city, Sunraku ponders how to conceal Amul's true form once they're back in civilization. However, Amul surprises him by revealing an artifact that allows her to transform into a beautiful young woman. Sunraku is taken aback by this revelation, wondering if he stumbled into a harem game with an anthro bunny girl. Amul explains that maintaining this form is taxing at her current level, reverting to her original appearance. As they approach the city gate, they face scrutiny from the guards due to Sunraku's half-naked state and the mysterious marks on his body. Amul quickly spins a tale to divert suspicion, earning them passage into the city. Meanwhile, tensions rise among players as arguments erupt over Amul's unauthorized photograph. However, attention shifts to Sunraku's cursed scars, drawing the interest of the player killers from Ashura Kai. Saiger offers Sunraku protection, intrigued by his connection to Lycagon. Amidst the chaos, Animalia attempts to coax Sunraku into revealing how to tame Vorpal bunnies before they are interrupted by an unexpected attack from Arthur Pensilgan. The anime delves into Sunraku's first encounter with Arthur in the garbage game Unite Rounds, which was meant to be a cooperative battle against hordes of enemies. As the players grapple with the frustration of low drop rates in the game, cooperation gives way to competition as they resort to theft and manipulation. Among them is Pensilgan, a cunning and merciless player who thrives on causing chaos and mocking others. Sunraku and Katso find themselves at Pensilgan's castle, supported by rebel troops. In Shangri La Frontier, Pensilgan launches a fierce attack on Sunraku, aiming to end him with poisoned arrows. Sunraku narrowly dodges her strikes and manages to deflect the final arrow. Animalia recalls Pensilgan's notorious reputation as the Giant Killer, second in command of Ashura Kai, known for ambushing higher-level players. As tensions escalate, Amul's disguise begins to falter, triggering a violent confrontation between her and Pencilgun. Pencilgun reveals that her boss wants Sunraku to reveal details of the unique scenario, placing a target on his back until he complies. Sunraku realizes Pencilgun's aim is to prevent him from reaching the town gate, offering him a chance to escape. Animalia's defense of a mall provides a distraction, allowing Sunraku to make a break for the gate, only to be intercepted by more Ashura Kai members. Rei intervenes, swiftly dispatching one of Pencilgun's allies. Motivated by her sister's defense of Sunraku, Rei tracks him down and comes to his aid. Pencilgun acknowledges Sunraku's potential to contribute to her plans, recognizing his abilities as a player of Shangri-La Frontier could be instrumental. The project Animalia alludes to could be related to exploiting Sunraku and Katz's prowess in Shangri-La Frontier to achieve some larger goal within the game world, possibly involving strategic gameplay or advancing in-game objectives. As the story briefly revisits Rei's initial encounter with Hizutone, her admiration for him grows, and she finds joy in supporting him against the threats posed by Ashura Kai. However, Pencilgun's downfall due to Animalia's curse leads to both players' demise, highlighting the sacrifice required by the curse's powerful effects. Sunraku seizes the opportunity to escape amidst the chaos, using unconventional methods to navigate his way to safety, while Rei remains lost in her thoughts, savoring the memory of her interaction with Sunraku. Upon reaching the town, as they enter the Vorpal Coliseum, Sunraku learns of the challenge ahead, facing 10 opponents using only Vorpal weapons. Despite the daunting task, Sunraku remains confident in his abilities, eager to confront the challenges that lie ahead. Meanwhile, Rei envisions a future where she and Hizutone form a close bond, imagining the joy of sharing everyday experiences together, such as walking to school. Sunraku's journey through the Vorpal Coliseum proves to be a challenging series of battles, starting with a wolf pack that tests his combat skills against coordinated attacks. After identifying and eliminating the alpha, he overcomes the pack with relative ease. However, he faces another unexpected challenge, a single monster with additional creatures attached to it, throwing off his expectations for individual opponents. Despite the diverse array of monsters he encounters, Sunraku perseveres through each battle, though some prove to be more difficult than others. The encounter with a poison-using bird proves particularly deadly, resulting in numerous defeats and frustration for Sunraku. As he prepares to face the final boss, Vosh arrives at the Vorpal Coliseum, introducing a new challenge. Sunraku must survive against the level 120 Aberrant Woodmage, a formidable foe captured by Vosh himself. With its versatile attacks and adaptability, the Aberrant Woodmage presents a daunting test of Sunraku's combat abilities. Sunraku employs agile and acrobatic maneuvers akin to Spider-Man as he dodges the monster's attacks and attempts to find openings for his own strikes. However, despite his efforts, some of his tactics prove ineffective against the powerful foe. As the battle with the Aberrant Woodmage intensifies, Sunraku finds himself pushed to his limits. The monster's versatile attacks, including roots, chains, and spells, make it increasingly difficult to evade and counter its onslaught. With 3 minutes remaining, Sunraku contemplates giving up, feeling worn out and discouraged by the seemingly insurmountable odds. However, Sunraku refuses to give in to defeatism, recalling his recent pattern of retreating from difficult situation. He regains his confidence and devises a bold plan to turn the tide of the battle. Using one of the roots as a springboard, he launches himself towards the Aberrant Woodmage, deftly evading its attacks and seizing its magic wand with a well-placed kick. Despite the monster's frantic response, Sunraku manages to disrupt its rhythm and buy himself precious time. With only 45 seconds left, the Aberrant Woodmage attempts to immobilize Sunraku with its roots and chains. Realizing he cannot stop the impending attack, Sunraku tosses the wand away, distracting the monster and allowing the clock to run out. In a triumphant display of wit and perseverance, Sunraku outsmarts the Aberrant Woodmage, mocking its futile attempts to defeat him. However, before the monster can launch another attack, Vosh intervenes, delivering a decisive blow that ends the battle. With the defeat of the Aberrant Woodmage, the Vorpal Soul Caller disappears, marking the end of Sunraku's grueling ordeal in the Vorpal Coliseum. As Sunraku considers his options for the next day, he is unaware of the unfolding plot surrounding the new scenario, Vorpal Epic, which appears while he removes his VR goggles and falls asleep. This scenario, recommended for players of level 80 and above, presents a challenge for Sunraku, who is currently only level 31. Despite this, he decides to move to a new city to avoid pursuit by other players. Amal suggests obtaining a disguise for Sunraku to evade detection, and they visit Amal's cousin's store to acquire it. When they reach Thirdrama, Sunraku's disguise is revealed to be quite ostentatious. A costume resembling the Egyptian deity Medjed, with his entire body covered by a keffiyeh. As they navigate Thirdrama, Amal notices something peculiar, leading her to suspect they already know someone in the area. The scene shifts to Rei, who is seen glaring at them from behind a building, her attempt at concealment failing. Meanwhile, the Ashurakai group regroups after their failed attempt to apprehend Sunraku. Their leader emphasizes the importance of obtaining information from Sunraku, who is believed to be connected to a unique scenario. However, they acknowledge the need to deal with Amal first, as she is protected by a unique monster. Pencilgun, feeling annoyed by the group's discussion, leaves abruptly, indicating she has other priorities. Despite the Ashurakai's shift in strategy due to changes in the game patch, one member feels compelled to pursue Amal for the sake of Set-chan. Sunraku, still disguised, and Amal, in her natural form, encounter Psyger-0. Sunraku, fearing retaliation for an earlier incident, attempts to flee. As Sunraku and Amal make their way to the prismatic forest grotto, they encounter two members of the Wannabes squad chasing after them. While fleeing, Amal reminds Sunraku of their intended destination and directs him towards the ruins. Sunraku shares his plan to deceive their pursuers by pretending to head to the ruins before making a sudden change in direction to throw them off track. The Wannabes fall for the ruse and inform their comrades that Sunraku is headed to the ruins, leaving them waiting in vain. Just as they think they've evaded their pursuers, Sunraku notices a shadow behind him. It's Psyger-0. Despite Sunraku's initial apprehension, Psyger-0 simply wants to send a friend request. Sunraku, caught off guard, ends up revealing details about the unique scenario to Psyger-0, unaware of her true identity or motives. Psyger-0 is thrilled to befriend Sunraku in the game, but Sunraku, shocked by the encounter, rejects her offer of assistance. Amal, sensing the romantic undertones, looks on knowingly as Psyger-0 accepts Sunraku's friendship request, content to have at least formed a bond within the game. Meanwhile, the Wannabes arrive at the gates of the prismatic forest grotto, only to encounter the imposing figure of Psyger-0. Terrified, they hastily retreat. Sunraku and Amal discard their disguises as they enter a tunnel illuminated by bioluminescent creatures, leading them into the forest. In the forest, Sunraku encounters various fascinating creatures, including a butterfly with a jug-like belly filled with nectar. Despite his amazement, he remains aware of his unusual appearance, with a bird for a head. He takes out his swords and rushes toward the butterfly to cut it down, but he keeps missing. The butterfly moves quickly, and he keeps swinging and missing, feeling embarrassed. Finally, he manages to hit the butterfly. I thought he'd eat it, but he keeps it instead. He says it's good for throwing. I have some ideas, but let's see what Sunraku does next. After defeating a mantis disguised as a flower, he spots a big beetle fighting bees. He picks up a mushroom and starts commenting on the fight. The bees attack, but their stingers can't penetrate the beetle's hard shell. They keep attacking, but the beetle fights back, using its horn to push them away. Sunraku tries to talk to Amal, but she ruins the moment with a silly comment. Sunraku looks disappointed but continues commenting on the fight. The bees keep attacking, and finally, they manage to crack the beetle's shell. Just when it seems the beetle is done for, it flies toward the queen bee and kills her. The bees flee, and the beetle goes back to eating. When it sees Sunraku, it charges at him, surprising everyone. Sunraku lures the beetle away by throwing butterfly nectar on a mantis. The beetle goes after the mantis, giving Sunraku a chance to attack and kill it. They keep exploring the forest, looking for the boss, the clown spider. Imagine a clown, already scary, combined with a giant spider. That's nightmare material. But wait, those amateurs we saw earlier weren't caught by the spider as we thought they would be. They were still fighting inside the lair. Sunraku tries to enter the boss's lair but is stopped because other players are still inside. One of them gets squished by a boulder. That clown spider means business. Finally, Sunraku gets in and tells Amal he wants to face the boss alone without losing any health. The spider is at the top of its lair, but Sunraku climbs up the walls like a pro, dodging boulders and using his skills to jump around. Amal worries he'll get stuck in a web, but Sunraku reassures her. He reaches the boss and sends it tumbling with a series of slashes. When the spider tries to use a web to soften its fall, Sunraku cuts it with a throwing knife. Then he uses the spider's own trap against it, sending a barrage of boulders crashing down. But the spider still isn't done. Sunraku notices some hanging boulders and logs and uses them to finish the job. Despite Amol's shock, the spider survives. Sunraku faces it head-on, noticing similarities to a past battle. He charges and lands a critical hit, finally defeating the spider. We then see a new player, Oikatsu, who joined the game because of Sunraku's influence. Rei returns to the game store to share the good news with the receptionist. She thinks the game is too easy and hopes for more challenges. She praises Sunraku's skills and heads home. On her way, she spots Sunraku reading a magazine and quickly hides from him. Meanwhile, Sunraku receives an update about SLF getting a new update. He recalls a meeting with Ratso and Pencil Knight, where Pencil Knight proposes they all play SLF to track down a unique monster called Weatherman the Tomb Guard. Ratso and Sunraku are thrilled at the idea. Ratso expresses his excitement about fighting a unique monster like Lycagon, and Sunraku is equally eager. Pencil Knight sets a date for the mission and emphasizes that levels don't matter, only skill does. She chose Ratso, the pro gamer, and Sunraku, whom she calls the trash gamer, for their skills. Sunraku insists on hearing the full plan before agreeing to take on the unique monster, considering the fate of the elite Ashura Kai members who attempted it. After leaving the store, Sunraku is approached by Rei, who finally gathers the courage to talk to him. Sunraku struggles to remember her name but eventually gets it right. It's a moment of pride for him. Rei, this lovely girl, tells Sunraku she plays SLF too, but he's too busy thinking about the game's popularity to notice her efforts. Just when she asks to play with him, he gets a mail from Pencil Knight, stealing his attention. He leaves Rei behind to meet Pencil Knight, leaving her disappointed. Later, Sunraku regrets not asking for Rei's username as he logs into SLF. He tells Amol to stop bothering him and informs her about the upcoming battle against Weatherman the Tomb Guard in 2 weeks. Amol is terrified and rushes off to inform Vosh. Sunraku is puzzled by Amol's sudden behavior. He remembers Pencil Knight's warning that NPCs don't respawn in SLF, which worries him. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to Amol.